Hello. So today I'm popping in to talk about how to motivate a demotivated person. Have you ever come across one of those in your team? Well, I have on several occasions. On one occasion, um, we had a team member who was very negative, causing rumpuses all over the shop. And whatever ideas we discussed or anything we wanted doing, he would be very um, negative and really unhelpful. So I suggested to the manager that she have a conversation with him, a one-to-one, to try and bottom out what was really going on. Interestingly, he'd actually been in that role doing the same work for 20 years. So no wonder he was switched off. No wonder he was negative. So through conversations, they explored how they were going to get him to enjoy work again. And what they actually did was move into another department and new work. And he was so much more happier, and there was a real buzz about him afterwards. Now, of course, that's not always possible in a small business to move somebody to a completely new department. You're only a small business with a few employees. But one thing you can think about is perhaps to make sure that they don't get bored, is upskilling them in the priority work of other people so that one, you've got cover, and two, that they're keeping their skills up, they're not getting bored, and if they've got motivator of learning, then they're going to be happy as Larry. So that's just one way. But of course, you can't do that in every circumstances. So I've got my piece of paper here with some tips on that I want to share with you to help you get your team motivated. Okay, let's begin. So we've got 7 tips, and the first one is sit down with your employees and find out what creates motivation in them. It's as simple as that. Have a conversation with them. So actually sit down on a one-to-one and ask them what they really enjoy doing and what they don't enjoy doing. Dig deep. If they're not sure, then start exploring through other means. But what you must do is listen carefully and note down what you hear. So you can expect to hear such typical responses as being appreciated for what I do and achieving something. In this case, you'd find out what that appreciation meant. For example, it could be a promotion, a bonus, public praise, recognition, private recognition, more responsibility, new tasks, or job security. But either way, you need to dig deep and explore. Another one could be they could say they like solving problems. So, for example, being the expert or developer, motivating others to get things right, actually resolving the problems within the workplace makes them feel great. So, could they coordinate something? Could they organize? So, you need to delve deep when they say something like that to find out what element of that problem solving do they really like doing. Next, let's look at the next tip. So one that I really recommend is understand the strengths of your team. So, and what else I like to think about is that you make sure that each other knows your strengths as well. And it's been shown that when we do something we love, then we thrive. We're more passionate about it. Now, if your team member is struggling to come up with what their strengths are, why not ask them about their proudest moments? Because they'll all have a moment where they felt really proud about themselves and what they've done. And that will really help you understand what their strengths are, and it will help them too. And remind them of being conscious of the positive things about themselves, because that helps them to bring these things out more. And having a good idea of what you're proud of and do well can help you actually strengthen yourself and develop yourself further. So it's really worth going through somebody's strengths when you want to motivate them. So that's tip 2. The tip here as well that I'll just add is, if they're struggling with bringing out those proud moments, ask them if they were their best friend, what would they say to themselves? So that's a nice little tip to get them to open up. The third tip is treat all your team members in their own rights as individuals. Remember, they're all different. They've all got different needs, different wants, and you can't tar them up with all the same brush. So you need to find out. So this goes back to tip 1 and sitting with them and exploring what really helps them, what really motivates them, what makes them tick, and what doesn't. So really drill down to understand each individual, because we have diverse teams in the workplace. Then you need to understand what motivates your team as a whole and how it fits together. And that's really important, because then you could decide what incentives even, let's get there, can you set at team level to increase team cohesion and performance. So it's really important to fit the two together. And then you can work out what your tasks are and what your goals are and how that fits with the motivation as well. Tip 4, always have clear goals and objectives. I've seen it when it's fallen down drastically, when a team has had no clear goals, no objectives, and they're floundering. And then slowly you could see that team completely switch off from what they were tasked to do, because they didn't really know what they were trying to achieve. They didn't know what they were aiming for, and they just couldn't be bothered. Demotivation at its height. So you need to build in goals and objectives, and nothing works better than involving your team in coming up with those goals. Try it and see. Now, tip 5, involve the individual in coming up with a solution. We all know we don't like being told what to do. So if you actually sit and work with the individual to find out what they really need and involve them in trying different things, they're actually going to feel a lot better about work, and they're going to trust you because you're not doing it away from them. So that's really key. And another thing that you can do is you can say, ask them, what don't they enjoy? And if they're struggling, and they might say, this work bores me. So what you need to do is drill down. So you can ask them to explain which parts of this work bore you, because that might then start telling you it might be just the admin element. It might actually be that they're an introvert and they don't want to mix with the people that they have to mix with to get the answers that they need. So by drilling down, you'll start to find out more about that person, and again, more about what motivates them. I had one who said they didn't like to write learning for new trainees anymore. And when we drilled down, well, we discovered that it wasn't the learning products that they disliked writing. It was the fact that it was for the actual new trainees, and they wanted somebody with a bit of knowledge. Now, you can't always accommodate that, but what you have to then do is balance it so that for 20% of their time, they're at least doing, if not more, of stuff they really love doing, because that will drill some passion into them. And remember, try different approaches. It's not one size fits all. It doesn't work like that. Each team member, as we've talked about, is diverse, and they will all need different approaches. So I had a team member, a manager, who was really feeling a bit lethargic and a bit unappreciated and a bit switched off. And when we had a conversation, I realised she needed to go and explore other work areas and shadow people to see what they were doing and what she could learn from them to bring back, and to see whether for a career she might want to move into one of those. Well, she went off and she did several weeks day at a time over the several weeks. And when she came back, she was so much more enthused, and she'd come up with a load of great new ideas that she could do in the workplace where she was. And that made her realize she didn't actually want to move. So sometimes what's a great idea with your team is to get them to shadow each other, to see what they do, to make suggestions, and then learn from each other. It's often the simple things like using Excel better, using a database in a different way, that will actually get them to realize, yeah, this is good. I can make a difference here, so I feel motivated. Well, tip 7 is, what if nothing changes? What are you going to do then? Well, if after all those one-to-one conversations and the different ways of trying haven't worked, this is the time to have a frank and honest, open conversation. You need to spell it out. If this doesn't change, this is what's going to happen. And then you need to work with the employee to look for opportunities and get them to think about, perhaps they need a different career, or they need a different role within what they're doing. And if you can't accommodate that, well, then they're going to have to look for another job. It's as simple as that. But they have to take some responsibility as well. It's not one way, it's two way. And as an employee, they need to take equal responsibility as you to try and change the situation. Well, that's it today. That's been a quick walk through, and I will be publishing a blog as well to support this. So, you can read the blog afterwards, which might help you as well. Go with that if that's your style of learning. But what I would like to say is some pitfalls that you can sometimes see as managers is that you mustn't make assumptions about what motivates employees. You need to find out. You mustn't presume the same approach works with everyone. And you mustn't let demotivated individuals affect the team performance and morale. You really need to deal with it. And lastly, don't go into micromanaging. All that does is make the situation worse. Well, that's it for now. Thank you for listening. Want to move from frustration and feeling you are being thwarted at every turn by your team? Well, why not pop along to Success with Employees membership and see how you can be guided through to get a high-performing team. Membership is only £25 a month currently, or £250 yearly, and it's locked in at that rate. And this offer actually finishes on the 18th of September. If you want to read more, then pop along to www.thepeoplementor.co.uk and go to Work With Me, and under there you'll find the People Mentor Club. Thank you. Lovely to see you today. Take care. Bye.